It's been probably a couple of weeks you've been looking forward to for a long time to get your hands on these players and have that interaction. What have been some of your first impressions, whether on or off the field?
Well, it's been great. The energy level of the guys, both in the meetings and on the field, has been terrific. So, they're all eager to learn, and it's been a good start so far.
Lou, how would you compare or describe the defense you inherited in mid-January to now?
Well, we've certainly added some pieces both through, free agency and then again in the draft. Chris Ballard and his crew have done, an amazing job of, filling in some areas. And, we've added quality players at each level of the defense, so super excited about it.
What does adding Mooney Ward kind of give you in terms of that outside corner?
Yeah, he's been a really good player, a really good, consistent corner in our league for a long time. He can match up on the best receivers. He's got length to guard bigger guys, but he's quick enough to handle, the shorter, faster guys. So, I think he brings a boatload of, and he's a good tackler. So he's a full package for sure.
Like shadowing, or is that just wrinkles?
Yeah, I think if it's warranted in particular game plans, for sure. I think he's up for that. I've always kind of done that. Match guys up with who I think is a good matchup for us, and maybe give us a little bit of an advantage. So we'll see how it goes.
Along with Ward, what's your impressions of Bynum and what he can and does bring to the secondary?
Well, again, another guy that's got a bunch of different skill sets that can help us. He started out as a corner, so he's got some coverage ability. He's always been able to take the ball away. He's been a consistent tackler. He's super smart. He's played in a few systems, so he has a good feel for a little bit of everything in terms of, just not one particular defense. He's bringing in a winning edge to our team. So, and that's important.
Between the two free agents and Kenny Moore and even some of the young returners, you have a pretty experienced group in that secondary. What does that empower you to do, maybe?
Well, it's great because, these guys have, they've seen the fastballs, they've seen the curveballs, and it's not like they're going to be starstruck when they get out there. And, things are going to change throughout games, and we're going to have to adjust as the game goes along. You always got, good plans that you think are going to work well, and then all of a sudden, there's something that you need to adjust to. And guys like that, having veteran guys, it just makes it that much easier.
Having Ward and Kenny and Walley all have like that inside-outside flexibility, does that allow you to be a little more creative in how you play stuff this year?
I think so. I think the more a guy can do, you've always heard that, the better. And I think the different skill sets they all bring allows us maybe to move guys around in certain defenses and against certain opponents, and hopefully keep them off balance. That's always the goal.
What stands out to you about Justin Walley in particular? And obviously, he has to prove it in the NFL, but just his chemistry.
A super gritty guy. His measurables are his measurables. He's really fast. He's strong. He's tough. I think he started over 40 some odd games in the Big Ten. So let's start with that. Just a very tough, competitive person at one of the most competitive positions in the NFL. If you're not a competitive guy out there covering these days, it's going to be a tough day. So he brings that first and foremost, and that's a great place to start.
Chris Ballard kind of suggested you might use, some different personnel groups that maybe we don't see as often. And I'm wondering, is that something you're evolving to, or is it something that you're kind of bringing with you? I don't know. The game is always changing, right? So,
I think so. I think the way it's over the years, it's kind of always been that way, but it's been a matchup league, and certainly if the offense puts out a certain personnel group, you want to be able to match it with what they're doing, especially on third down. You want to try to get cover guys covering receivers, and nowadays these tight ends, it's the days to me of putting linebackers on tight ends is not ideal for the defense. So you always want to get a bigger, longer athlete that maybe can run a little bit DB mindset. So yeah, more DBs out there in pure passing situations. I think is something that we've always tried to do, and we'll continue to do.
How do you view your linebacker room right now?
Good. We're just we added a guy yesterday. or today rather, who I'm familiar with, can create some depth there. I think the good news about where we're at as a total defense is, we've got some competition across, again, at each level of the group. So, we'll see how things shake out, and it's so early. We'll never make a decision as a staff in the spring, because at the end of the day, until we start running and getting off blocks and tackling people, that's when that's when you give somebody a chance to win a job. It's never going to be in the spring.
Guys like Carlisle and Wooler, does their background playing defensive back close the gap some on what you just said about linebackers and coverage situations?
Potentially, yeah. No, it's a good point. Potentially, for sure. They've already lined up against wideouts and tight ends and things like that. So, yeah, it certainly helps them. Doesn't hurt.
Lou, what was your reaction? And I guess you're always adding pieces, but when you can get the second round, you can get the pass rusher, the lineman, and what he adds and what he could add to the defense.
Well, I mean, super excited. I just think that JT brings so many different tools with him. Can rush, is a big guy, so can slide down inside and use him somewhat as an inside rusher potentially. Stout against the run. He's been able to take the ball away. I think he had 16 some odd sacks in his career. So you're talking about a guy that's had proven production at the highest level. Again, another guy, to me, it's important that the guys we took in free agency, they're used to winning, and that's a big part of becoming a consistent winning team. Is you got players that are used to it. This guy just won a national championship, so. Cam Bynum's been used to being in the playoffs. Ward's been in Super Bowls, I think that stuff's all important.
How do you move forward with Ebukam when you know what he's done, but you know what he's coming off of? How do you move forward with him?
Well, I just think you listen to the medical people, and when they tell us he's cleared, then, we go full steam ahead. And good news, everything's trending in the right direction, and looking for him to get back to where he was a couple years ago.
How do you view that defensive line room just in general? Last year they had 36 sacks, maybe bottom 10 in pressure rate. Just the talent that's there, and maybe the hunger they have to prove that last year was over.
Well, I think a few years before that, they led the league, if I'm not mistaken. So it's in there. There's the ebbs and flows of careers and seasons and things like that. That's a hungry group. I can tell you now. Tell you right now that they have that chip on their shoulder. There's some prideful guys throughout this building, but in particular in that room, and with Buck and some of the things that he's done, and there's the young guys. I think we're fortunate to have that group, and I'm betting on those guys for sure.